We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, and I'm a Partnerships and Community Manager here at AllVoices, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Today, I'm very excited to welcome our next guest onto the show. Her name is Khalilah Olokunola. She's the Chief People Officer at TRU Colors. If you could share a little bit about yourself for our audience, including your pronouns, and also when you were younger, how did you answer the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much, Christina, for having me today. My name is Khalilah Olokunola, she, her. And, when I was young, I wanted to work in a pharmaceutical company. I wanted to run a farm company, or I wanted to do for forensic science. I really loved the TV shows that came on, and I always saw myself sweeping crime scenes and doing crazy stuff like that. It didn't happen, but it was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted a white coat, and it sounds funny, but I wanted a white coat. And even though I didn't do it, working as Chief People Officer to today is reminded me of the importance of people.
Absolutely. I mean, you are much braver than I was when I was a kid. When you kind of think about your personal journey of reading really leading you up to this point, how do you think it's really kind of prepared you or shaped your experience to be a Chief People Officer at TRU Colors? What has led you there?
Yeah, so TRU Colors is a different type of company, right? It's a for-profit company with a closely knit social mission to unite gang rivals and decrease violence in our city and cities across the country. And so before I even get to the education and the experience, it's how I lived. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I understood gangs. I was surrounded by gangs, and so I knew how to speak the language on the block, and I learned how to speak the language in the boardroom. So that experience alongside of working in various companies growing up and learning how to understand people and how to utilize data and information to drive change, or structures and systems to drive change, helped me in this role that I'm in now as Chief People Officer at TRU Colors. But it didn't come, on purpose. I became Chief People Officer by accident because I would have never chosen HR for myself. But you look back now and I realize that those shared experiences I had that the guys can relate to, and some of my past employment, helped pre-qualify me to where I am today. It's kind of like those things that you wish that you didn't have to see, experience, or go through. It's those things that has helped me in this role today.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it sounds like it's really personal for you, and it's something that you're passionate about as well. And TRU Colors is a really unique company, and that's one of the things I love about it, and why I kind of reached out to discuss as well. And it sounds like, based on your personal experience, like, what do you think is your greatest strength and something that you're currently working on in your role leading the people team at the company?
That's an incredible question, and most people will say it's how I communicate, and it's being able to share stories. I think my greatest strength is understanding where our team is when they come in, because I've been there. My greatest strength is my past life, it's my past experiences. And that strength reminds me of what I needed when I was in those situations. And it helped me understand what we need to go forward. When you work with people, I have this thing called the KIND code, and KIND is the acronym for knowledge inspires new direction. Once you use it to navigate the direction that you need to go and make impact for your people. And because I understand how to shape systems and structures to help navigate, to drive those outcomes we're looking for, like leadership and unity and teamwork. And so it's my experience coming up in Brooklyn is my greatest strength that I use, and being able to have those conversations when the team comes in and show them how to navigate through going from the block to the boardroom.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's really important in driving unity and driving these strategies. I know you mentioned a little bit about kind of the mission of TRU Colors too, in terms of really dedicated to leveraging economic impact and gang violence. Can you talk a little bit about the strategies that you kind of help create to really achieve this big goal?
Yeah. So, when we first started TRU Colors, the CEO, George, and I, we always thought, hey, let's bring in our team and let's teach them skills. But early on, I realized that you couldn't teach skills by itself, because most of the team didn't have the confidence they needed to use the skills they were taught, because they had never been in an environment, and change is hard. And so we went back and we added a component called Belief Week in what is called our Disrupt You program, which is a 5-month overall program. It's 8 weeks of life skills, social skills, business skills, and beer, right? We're a brewery.
Yeah.
And during that 8 weeks, we teach you how to interact and to engage with each other, but we teach you the basics of life skills. I call the first few weeks the hot honeymoon phase, where you get to know you.
Yeah.
The second phase is the fight through. It's like, okay, change is here, but you still have to press a little bit, because we are learning things that are personal to you. And we're working on things like money, housing, transportation, and healthy relationships, because I understood early on that you can't be a professional success if you have personal situations that you still have to handle. So we intertwine those things. Then that last phase is second nature. You don't always have to teach people, you don't always have to say, hey, you need to break this habit. You just have to teach people new habits. And by default, the old ones will stop. Our biggest strategy that we came up with was that onboarding. It's that Disrupt You program. And after you go through that 8 weeks of change and transformation and working with guys who are in the room with you that you considered rivals, that you wouldn't be able to walk the streets with, you realize that there's a line that brings you closer together than it is that divides you. And after that 8 week, we flow into a 90-day internship. And that 90 days, you're working in the department that you expressed interest in. And after that 90 days, you'll flow into an associate role. So creating this system, this outline of this career tracking coursework has been one of the biggest strategies that we created in TRU Colors. We do add a skydive jump as part of our initiation to jump into the TRU Colors gang. So once you finish that 8 weeks, I take you to skydive.
Oh,
And
wow.
and it's kind of symbolic of you leaving everything up in the air and starting this brand new life. And most of our guys have never flown in a plane before. So they go up, but they never land, because they actually jump out. And I think, Christina, the way that curriculum was designed, and the way any curriculum designed, I believe, is key. We have formal classroom training. We have that's followed by development activity. I get you to research what you just learned in the classroom, and then a special project. I want you to present what you heard and what you learned in your own voice and your own perspective in front of your peers, which boosts confidence. Then I reinforce that learning experience with what I call a beyond the block experience, where I take the team outside of their comfort zone and introduce them to things that's brand new, to apply the lessons that they learned. I won't just tell you that you could use your voice to help shape your community. I'll take you to DC and to the African American Museum and introduce you to people like Frederick Douglass, who used his voice to help shape his community. And so Disrupt You has been a game changer for us, because we found our team members go through, and once they go through and they get through, they realize that there is opportunity, that greater is possible, that there is change, and that change starts on the inside of them. Another strategy I will mention briefly is true community. A lot of companies have recognition and reward systems, but ours is a little bit different. So true community is a system that I designed where we split the entire team up into tribes. Those tribes elect a head coach, and we gamified it. And that head coach leads that tribe through an entire season. They submit play sheets, and those play sheets is ways that they can garner community cash and not points, because our team is responsive to money. And those things that you can make community cash off of is stability, right? It's work performance. It is giving back to the community and, changing perceptions. And so every month we have guys that are driving change in the community and in their own lives that they get recognized and rewarded for. We have a friendly competition outside of your comfort zone. And within that system, we are driving outcomes that we're looking to drive within our team, like those leadership skills or better effective communication. We are continuously driving unity through that. And our guys is getting the opportunity to experience things that they've never experienced before. And it changes how they perceive life, how they perceive themselves. Because if you recognize that you can change within you, then you realize that you can also change your community. So Disrupt You, our onboarding and true community, our recognition and rewards tribe system.
It sounds like you're doing a lot to really invest in your people. And I think context is really important too. You can have the best professional development, but you have to understand, like you were talking about, what's happening outside of work as well, your lived experience. And I think that is something that we really believe in as well, that you can't just silo or compartmentalize them too. You have to understand what someone is going through or just their responsibilities outside of work as well. And you're very intentional with all of the kind of programs that you outlined. And I'm sure it's a dynamic process too as you're developing them. And you've been impacting just the culture there for, I think it's like almost 4 years. And how have you really thought about intentionally scaling as the team continues to grow? I'm sure a lot of people want to be part of the mission as well. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so the scale is so hard, right? When you're growing, you have to constantly adapt to those changes, and you have to change things within the system. An example is Disrupt You has always been 8 weeks, followed by those 90 days, and then you go into that role. But for non-gang hires, I've designed a fast track Disrupt You because they still should understand the belief, the brand, and the business, right? And so as we begin to scale and grow, we're taking some of the things that's at the core of who we are, and we're translating them to our team. And when I say fast tracking it, that doesn't mean that they miss moments, but we have adapted new ways and strategies. So as opposed to you coming in and spending the full 8 weeks with people, I've added something like an Inclusor Ship, which is a funny word, right? What's an Inclusor Ship? That's you going out and intentionally, connecting with somebody over lunch that is different than your color, your culture, your race, your preference, your socioeconomic status. All those things may be different, but I'm sending you guys to lunch after this class that you went through and you experienced together. And when you come back, I just have 3 questions to gauge, to make sure that it was impactful. It's, did you learn something new? Did you find something in common? Will you go out to lunch again? I call it perspective points.
Yeah.
And so I've thought about the scale a lot, and how we can make impact in other places. And Disrupt You is scalable. True Community is scalable, but we also have to adapt in some ways to fast track to get people through based on the roles that they're going into. And it hasn't been easy because there's always something that, can pop up in any company. And for us, violence is something that we combat against. We watch something called Shot Spotter, because if there's shots firing all over the place, then there's something that we have to do. Maybe we have to recruit from a specific area. We've lost people, in our communities, and even coworkers that have hurt us and caused pain. But what it does is that we realize that as we continue to grow and we adapt as we grow, we can continue to go because the mission is important. And it's something that I believe won't just change the community, but it'll change other communities that we live in. So going back, and I just rambled, when we think about scaling, so the systems do scale, but as you get more and more people, you have to adapt to the language, that the people understand, and you have to adapt to the time that you have. And so we have made some changes in those areas, and we've repackaged the Disrupt You. I have Disrupt You that works for our gang hires, Disrupt You for experienced hires. I've created a Disrupt You version that's all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I call it Brave Conversations. It's Disrupt You, but it's just a different model and method, and it's designed for the people that you're speaking to. And so I think that as you scale, you look at where you're going, what's happening there, and the people that you want to impact, and then you begin to reshape.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the values as you were talking about too, in terms of why everybody is here and the different resources that you're offering to them as well. But it sounds like, again, you're being really authentic and genuine and offering so many different ways to kind of get involved and also understand kind of why everyone is here as well, and why people are passionate about the work. And you mentioned community impact. I know we've been talking about kind of internal company culture at TRU Colors and the kind of uniqueness of the business as well. How are you thinking about measuring the external impact on the community when you are tackling all of these like big, brave conversations?
Man, again, I just mentioned Shot Spotter briefly. And so there's a system that is, it's countrywide. Some cities and municipalities opt in for it. And so we're looking at, how many people were shot, how many people were injured, and, how many people passed away, and we're measuring our impact that way. Today, we have about 85 employees, and 90% of those employees are active gang members. And so having that many people in the building that said yes, to change, is a statement where we can look back and say, hey, you know what? There was something that happened last week or 2 weeks ago, but we have 90% of our team members have still said yes. So we're looking at what's happening in the communities that we care about. We're looking at the number of people that we have in the building, and we're looking at the change that they're making also. So we measure through ShotSpotter, we measure through violence. We don't measure through events and how many people show up, because that's not our mission. Our mission is to decrease gun violence, in our city and hopefully in cities across the country. And so we're looking at how many people were impacted by that violence. And when we see an uptick, we realize that we have a lot of work to do, and we focus on that work through the different systems and structures that we have internally and externally.
Well, I think that's absolutely incredible, and the amount of people who have raised their hand and continue to show up day after day, especially when they have kind of these perceived major differences as well. And kind of you mentioned the diversity, equity, and inclusion aspect too, through brave conversations and just a variety of different ways you encourage people of different backgrounds to kind of have lunch together and have conversations. The power of storytelling. In your experience and opinion as a leader, what is really important to ensure all employees at TRU Colors really feel like they are part of the mission?
So active listening is a thing, right? And you can actively listen to somebody, but active listening has to come with actionable it has to come with action. Like, you can listen to what somebody says, but you have to show them that you heard them, and you do that with what you do. I think that we know the saying that you can invite somebody to party, but unless you invite them to dance, that's not inclusion.
Right.
And it's true, but just don't invite me to dance once, right? I need to keep dancing, and I need you to recognize the moves that I make when I dance also. So I think what's really important for us to ensure that all of our employees at the company feel like they are part of the culture is to listen to them, and then to design and define based on what they said and who they are. A lot of people create systems for people that they've never had conversations with, and they don't listen to, because they believe that that works best for the company as a whole. And all companies have mission and mandates that they have to produce. But I believe that any company that's intentional is people focused, purpose driven, and profit aligned. I call it 3 the hard way. All 3 of those things need to come together, right? And so what that means is that I'm listening to my people. I'm designing based on what they said, and I'm making sure that all the pieces are connecting, that everybody feels like they are part of the story. It's like a tree. When my team onboards, because I don't onboard anymore, but it just used to be me. I was the one-man HR show in TRU Colors, right? And when we onboard now, like, it's important to show people how they fit in the puzzle. Like, this is your role. You may be in sales, you may be in facilities, you may be in HR, you may be in marketing or production, but this is your role, and you are a part of the story. And so showing people where they fit in the overall narrative of the organization is key, because if you let a salesperson know that it's the sales that they drive that helps make the money, that helps scales the social mission, and produce change, then they would come into the building proud and feel like they are a part of the change and the story. And for so long, we bring people in and we give them jobs, and we just make them believe that it's just a job, but it's not a job. People want to know that they're making impact, and they're making impact when you are listening to them, and that you're making change and sharing stories that include who they are, what they do, and how they do it.
Yeah, I think getting to the why and explaining that context, showing people where they fit into the larger picture, it doesn't just happen. You have to be intentional about it. You have to be strategic, and you have to communicate in a kind of two-way form as well. You have to get their feedback, and also just share like why you're passionate about the work and why they should be as well. We've talked about kind of people driven, purpose driven, and really, bringing you back to why everybody is at the company together through these different programs. And I wanted to ask too, if you have seen anything, not necessarily at TRU Colors, but just out in the world as people are shifting their people strategies dramatically, any kind of mistakes or myths when they are scaling or onboarding, anything like that from your kind of point of view?
Yeah, I think that I've seen a lot. Like, people think inclusion is about physical proximity,
Mhm.
right? And it's about intentionally planning. A lot of companies don't have action and accountability plans to drive change, or multi-levels of leading and multi-levels of languages. They have plans that connect to the C-suite or to the director level, but not for the people that are starting, that's coming in, who's actually holding the business up at that level. I think that a lot of companies, there's some things that they miss. Like we don't do pulse checks and progression plans anymore. Like we don't check in with our people. We don't listen to lead better by starting those brave conversations. Sometimes you just don't want to talk, but when you don't talk, you harbor, what you may be experiencing in the workplace, and you don't exercise what you know and what you know. And that's no, KNOW, and no, NO. You don't exercise what you know you should do, and you don't exercise what you should say no to. We are in this we're in this state in our country that things have changed dramatically, especially in the workplace. People are important, and I think that understanding and making sure that your workplace is functional, fundamental, and that it's for the people while you are aligning and making your profit, then I think that you missed it. There's these things called the 3 A's of inclusion: audit, address, activate, right? That's what I call it. So audit what you know, address any issues that you see, and then activate the change. And sometimes we know that we need to do any things, but we just don't. And so, Christina, there's so many cautionary tales and so many mistakes that people made. And like, if I had to say one thing, I would say, pay attention to the people that's inside the company, especially when it comes to your people strategy, because people don't leave companies, they leave bad management.
I would definitely agree with that as well. And I think in terms of the 3 A's too, it would be a cyclical process. It's not linear. It's not like once you achieve these things, and that goes to your point about accountability. It's you have to continuously audit, you have to continually activate, you have to put action behind words after actively listening. And once you build that trust, action needs to happen to show that you actually care about someone and that you're listening to them too. People are complicated, and things are always going to be changing too. Looking ahead, is there anything else that you think people need to include in their people strategy to be successful in the future?
Yeah, I think just more intentionality, just more intentionality when you are when you are creating strategies for your people. And what I mean by that is understanding the people that you have, understanding who they are, understanding your mission, and realizing how you can take their skills, their talents, and their differences and effectively align them all. And so just being more intentional.
Yeah, intention. It doesn't happen. It doesn't just happen. People are behind these like incredible companies, incredible places to work, and people who are come to work because they feel like they have a purpose. It's an active choice to make that happen. Is there any advice after, people listen to this episode and they're like, I want to join the team, whether they are either active gang members in the community or people who are, in other positions that are just like want to apply? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, go for it. Right? If you're ready to say yes to make impact and to make change in the lives of the community and in your life, because nobody's the same once you come work in TRU Colors, then go ahead and apply. It's careers@truecolors.co. Tell them KO sent you.
KO sent you. I love it. Don't be afraid. Do it. Just do it. Jump in. And yeah, I love that. Is there anything that I either didn't ask you, or maybe 1 to 2 key takeaways you hope our audience brings with them after listening to our conversation this afternoon?
Yeah, I'll just end with this and say that most companies don't think that they're mission minded because they're all for profit. But I think that every company has some kind of components internally and within them can be classified as impactful. And impact starts with an I. And so when we think about people, think about strategy, think about cultivating culture in companies, remember that it's you. If you can change within who you are, for yourself, for the mission, for the company, and for the people, other people would tag along, because the we connects to the I. It takes all of us, but change has to start in you first. People strategy is hard because, again, the world has changed and it's constantly changing. But if you are intentional, if you activate the kind code that's knowledge inspires new direction, you use what you know to drive change and to define the systems and strategies that you want to use, then you would see that you would have a group of people, army of employees. They are dedicated to what you're doing in your company, and they probably are also the most productive. But we just have to pay attention, and we can't get caught up in the what ifs. We have to get caught up in the this is what we know. And so because this is what we know, this is what we do.
Yeah, we can get caught up in the what ifs every day and just like be worried every day. But in terms of impact, I think that's an incredible call to action as well. In terms of it starts with the internal work with a capital W, and then again taking action on it and showing that you're actively listening and want to make a difference. Ko, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture. It was so nice to speak with you, and it's clear that your passion for the company and the mission in our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a reminder for folks who are listening, AllVoices believes in the empowerment of everyone to speak up at a company, and we know it's a requirement to succeed. We'll speak soon, everyone.